15 Minutes with Federal Training Academy, where busy professionals gain valuable insights in 15 minutes or less. Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Kachuba, and I am honored to have Major General Retired Jimmie Jaye Wells with us here today. And we're going to talk about what he's doing currently, as well as an important book that he has written that has some core leadership lessons and is the basis of it's the foundation of who he is. And we want to make sure that we get to that as well. But what I'd like to start with is we want to talk about career transitions, and especially the career transitions from kind of this. And you have a very unique example where it's professional athlete into the military, and then also the civilian side of public service. And so with those career transitions, and we want to tie all of this into the July 4th edition of our Independence Day as well. So we're going to go through 3 key questions. And so JJ, I've known you for 4 years now, and I'm just so delighted that you want to be on this particular episode with us. And now I know you're going to have a lot of fans on this one, because you're a professional athlete for the Washington Redskins. I can hear the music in the background. Now the Washington Commanders. So tell us, what was it like being a Washington Redskin or Commander, and what were some of the key leadership lessons at a young age?
Well, I'll tell you, Angela, it was pretty wild. It had been like about a 10-year lifelong dream, you know, when you're 20 years old. so I'd started kind of young, and because I remember telling teachers that I wanted to be a professional football player and an athlete. And of course you get the poo-poo, and yeah, so do 10 million other little kids your age. But I started out as a rookie with the Washington Redskins in 1979. And I snapped for punts and field goals, and worked with some tremendously strong-willed, very capable individuals. And, you know, some of these were household names, guys like Joe Theismann and Jack Pardee, our coach. And that transition from college to the NFL was pretty substantial. I mean, just the talent basis alone. On a college football team, you're going to have 1 or 2 that are really superstars, but not all 22. And you get to the NFL, and that was probably the key difference in that transition relative to looking to the left and right and seeing all of these superstars, but also being less egocentric and looking across and saying everyone's working together for a team effort for us to be successful. And so I don't know anything, you know, about like individual sports, except for running and those kind of things, but in bicycling, which I really love. But when you're on a team like that, that giving selflessly is so crucial. And personally, that confidence that you get from actually performing in front of 70, 60, 70,000 people, screaming at you, screaming against you, screaming and throwing at you, whatever it might be. But it's also this sense of talent versus work for me that comes through about, hey, you might have some particular talent. Yes, I'm 6'5", so that kind of helps. So that's God-given. But, you know, what are you going to do with it? So spending the hours, spending the moments, spending both the spiritual, physical, and mental, and all of the intellectual aspects of trying to be superior in what you can do with yourself. That was an important lesson. And then, of course, you know, when you're in NFL, you represent an international renowned brand, and you do that from a platform of communication with, as a 20-year-old here, I'm giving interviews and I'm talking to people in Congress who wanted my autograph, which is kind of strange. But, you know, I think the when you get interviewed by the Washington Post and you're 20 years old, it's pretty heady stuff. But then you carry that into other kinds of challenges and difficulties that I've had throughout my life. And I think that helps. And so fortune favors the bold, audace fortuna juvat. And I kind of learned that's, you got to stand out, got to give it a shot.
Prep towards greatness, be bold, don't fear. But here's what I love about you too. So your humble leadership. So I'm going to go into our next question about how we met was when you are currently an executive for TSA, for Department of Homeland Security, TSA right now, and you are in the Pacific region. And so how did you kind of get from the professional athlete piece of your career over to the military portion, which is, by the way, when I became a fan. I know you're going to have a lot of fans, JJ, over the Washington Redskins. That's where a lot of your fan base is going to come from. But for me, it was when I heard about your military service. And so coming from a family background that has served since the American Revolution, so for me, that was immense. And at Fort Bragg, where I'm now located, I was born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area, spent more than 40 years there. And now I'm in North Carolina, although I return to the D.C. area for work regularly. So for me, the Washington Redskins, yes, I get it. I still remember my father-in-law every game, right? We were watching the game. So that's your fan base. But for me, it really is your leadership as a military leader, and then how you transition so well into the civilian side of service in the federal government. So could you tell us a little bit about that? And what are some of the core lessons that brought you to this top level of leadership?
Well, that's fascinating. So if you're in the Fayetteville area, you're actually in the Cross Creek area, the original name of that town back in 1720 or something. I'm just reading a book by Rick Atkinson, one of my favorite authors, about that area in the Revolution. But I'm telling you, in the military, sometimes rank can be a crutch. So you mentioned that I'm a major general, but rank is one of those situations where it allows you into the room to do important things for other people, and you can use it inappropriately. Fond of the story of the sergeant who ended up his sentences said, well, it doesn't matter because I'm a staff sergeant and you're going to do what I told you to do. Well, those kind of transitions of people's thinking of leadership, I think are erroneous, whether they're thinking that's what's used in the military or not. I think the level of bringing about oneself using any kind of an inspirational method to help people see the way forward, to understand a strategy, and to look for what the positive gain can be with the knowledge and the skills and ability and attributes, but importantly, preferences. What do people want to do? So you can't learn preferences unless you ask, and you have to listen and find out ways that people want to be successful and then show them a path forward. And I think I've been able to do that in a series of different ways. I was at Fort Bragg prior to Grenada. My first combat mission was in 1983, after I'd come from Korea and had been in the language school to learn Korean to haul nuclear systems kind of around that country. They don't have them there anymore, so it's okay. But I'm excited continually about being able to look at processes, help people gain a team approach to being successful and to make others feel comfortable, whether it's 20 million guests who pass through our turnstiles every year, or it's the 2,000 people that are here in Honolulu, Guam, Saipan, American Samoa, and across the Hawaiian Islands. It's all an exciting way to help people see the right path forward and to help people. That's about it.
Service. There it is. Publicly service motivated. And where did you get that?
Yeah, my favorite mentor, you're holding up the Matriarch Century, that book that I just finished not long ago, in a way to do a biography in one way on my mother, but also this grand theme of America, this sense of here, our country is about people who have come here. So there's a subplot in that book that you read, and you were one of the first people that saw it and read it and did a wonderful review. So I want to thank you, Angela. You inspired me. But there's a subplot of a nation of immigrants and who we are. And from that, in my family, German diaspora on her side of the family, and Scots Irish on the other side. But they're talking about the struggles that they had. Why did they come? There was this underlying thing. I'm thinking, why did they leave Germany? I've served in Germany as a general, and I know how beautiful that place is, but also there's an underpinning of freedom, of liberty, of an ability to do what you want to do. That's America, and that's what the people fight for, and it's a strong theme in that book. But there's also a theme of a century. My mama just lived short of 100 years. And so I have this theme that I learned from another author called Yuval Noah Harari. And he wrote a book called Homo Deus, and also a book called Sapiens. And in that book, he characterized a guy like Rip Van Winkle. He goes to sleep and wakes up 100 years later. And in this book, and in this particular century of my mother, nothing was the same from her birth year, 1923, till she passed away. Nothing. But the strange thing is, if you had been the Rip Van Winkle and the year was 1000, and you woke up in the year 1100, nothing would be very different at all. I mean, you still you had a horse, you had an oxen, there was a dirt road, and a squabble of a house, and that was it. There was nothing that had been changed. And you could take any time in history for 100 years slice of time, and nothing would really changed. But you take my mother's century, in that whole generation of a century, starting with her right after World War I, and the fascinating differences that were there. And so that to me is a strong theme. But the most important for me personally are the pieces that you focused on, which were about the leadership things. You know, here's a mother. Yeah. Here's a mother who influenced me to become a general. I'm one of 7 kids, the youngest. So she had more time to whatever kind of posit with me that, I had to do things in the right way or I wasn't going to do it. So, kudos to her.
So one of the reasons why I love this, and perhaps why I connect with it as well, is you were talking about the immigrant aspect of it. Well, on one side of my family dates back all the way to the American Revolution. On the other side is my mother from South Korea. And so she immigrated here as a naturalized citizen, has been here for more than 50 years now. I'm in my 50s. And so that aspect of it, absolutely. And as we air this particular episode leading up to our July 4th Independence Day celebration, I also really want to honor what you've chosen to do. We have 2 minutes remaining. I want to honor what you've chosen to do with the proceeds of this book and the Gold Star families. And I'm really touched by that. I think that's incredible. I think it's a way for everyone who's watching this, please purchase this book. Not only will you get the leadership lessons, the character lessons, and if you're interested in faith-based lessons as well, those are all inside this book right here by Jimmie J. Wells. But also it's to benefit the Gold Star families. So tell us a little bit about why you made that decision.
Well, the president of the Gold Star mothers, she was a former president, Candy Martin, and she was a chief warrant officer she worked with me. I knew of her, and I knew long ago that her son was going to go into West Point, and he made it, and we were all excited. I was probably a major or a lieutenant colonel at the time. He went to West Point to graduate, went to combat. We were both in combat about the same time. her son and I think she'd retired. And unfortunately, she became a Gold Star mom. And I visited his grave, and he's buried outside West Point at the university. And I put my coin on that gravestone, and I said, that we got to do everything we can for these mothers, the children of some of them, and just the impact. And so I called her. I said, look, I've written this book, and I want to give 100% of the proceeds to your organization that you used to be the president of, Candy Martin. And she said, that would be a wonderful blessing. I said, look, this is not a bestseller. There's not millions of copies out there. Wonderful people like Angela read this, and hopefully they're inspired. They get something out of it. But to me, this is my mother. She's not a Gold Star mom, but representing the people of our nation who've paid that ultimate price, the survivors, those mothers and those children and others, I think could, for whatever nickels and dimes I can throw together for this publication, it's going to that organization. So I'm just honored to be able to do it.
Thank you so much, JJ. And so we know freedom is not free. So our independence based on the sacrifice of others. So tremendous. I'm just so impressed that you've chosen to donate the proceeds to the Gold Star family. So I hope everyone watching this, purchase this book. We'll put the link in the write-up for this particular episode of 15 Minutes with Federal Training Academy. And I'm so honored that you chose to join us. I thank you so much, JJ.
Oh, thank you, Angela. Appreciate all of you, all your efforts, your family, and of course, all the audience members.
Yeah, I feel like we need a longer session. So hopefully we'll do another one of
these. I think Labor Day is coming up.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, everyone. And Major General retired JJ Wells. And if you do ever fly into Hawaii, say hello. Say hello to JJ. Thank you very much, everyone.
Mahalo.